All right. Ready for a deep dive into a Hollywood couple that really breaks a mold?
I'm ready when you are.
Jodie Foster and Alexandra Hedison.
Oh, interesting choice.
Yeah, we've got some excerpts here from an article called, what is it? Jodie Foster and Alexandra Hedison. Art, Love, and Legacy.
I'm familiar with their work, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everyone knows Jodie Foster, right? Like, she's basically Hollywood royalty at this point.
Oh, for sure.
But what really fascinates me about this couple, I mean, Alexandra Hedison is a pretty big deal in the art world herself, but they've managed to somehow, like, just exist outside of the whole Hollywood craziness.
Yeah, that's really unusual, especially these days.
Right. It's like they've built this world where their work and their relationship can thrive without all the, drama and the gossip.
That makes you wonder what their secret is, right?
Yeah, like, how do they tune it all out?
It's definitely a different approach than what we usually see from celebrity couples.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit and talk about Jodie Foster's journey.
Okay, sounds good.
I mean, where do you even begin? Child star and Taxi Driver, then bam, 2 Oscars, one for The Accused, another for The Silence of the Lambs.
And now a director, too.
Exactly. But the thing is, you never really hear much about her personal life.
She's notoriously private, isn't she?
Exactly. And that's, I think, a big part of what makes this relationship so interesting.
In a way, it seems like that privacy, that desire to keep a low profile, that's what's allowed her to really focus on her craft and her relationships.
Makes sense. If you're not constantly bombarded by the paparazzi and the tabloids, you've got more space to just be yourself, right?
I think so, yeah.
So you got this Hollywood A-lister, and then you've got Alexandra Hedison, who's killing it in the art world, which is, well, a completely different scene.
True, but maybe not as different as we might think.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, think about it. Foster is all about maintaining that privacy, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, Hedison seems to share that value. Letting her work speak for itself rather than chasing the spotlight.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And remember, they even worked together on that episode of Black Mirror.
Oh, yeah, the one that everyone was raving about.
Exactly. And that wasn't just a case of nepotism, casting your wife in your project just because you can.
No, that episode was seriously good.
Right. And I think that speaks volumes about their mutual respect and their ability to really bring out the best in each other's work.
So their individual paths, even though they seem so different, they kind of lead them to this shared space.
Definitely. There's a real synergy there.
Okay, so let's talk about Alexandra Hedison a bit more.
Sure.
Her photography is incredible, like seriously world-class. And then she's got these amazing mixed media pieces. And on top of all that, she directs, too.
Yeah, her art is really something else. It really makes you think.
What's so fascinating to me is how she tackles these really profound themes. Identity, connection, the human experience, but she does it in a way that's just so powerful.
It's like she's able to capture the essence of what it means to be human, but through these incredibly evocative images and stories.
And it's not just pretty pictures, you know what I mean? There's this real depth to her work, like she's wrestling with these big existential questions.
And what's really interesting is how those same themes, that same depth, it carries over into her directing work, too.
So even though they work in different mediums, they're both drawn to similar stories.
Exactly. It's like they're both exploring the same terrain, but using different tools.
Huh, that's fascinating. So are we saying that Foster's films and Hedison's art, they're like different sides of the same coin?
It's definitely a possibility. I mean, think about Foster's film Little Man Tate, for example.
Oh, yeah, that one's a classic.
It's all about celebrating intelligence and sensitivity, not conventional attractiveness. And then you look at Hedison's work, and it's often focused on the beauty of the natural world, rejecting that whole Hollywood idea of manufactured perfection.
Oh, wow, you're right. There's a connection there.
It's subtle, but it's definitely there.
And that actually brings up something else I want to touch on, their whole approach to aging in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, it's practically revolutionary, right, in this industry where everyone's obsessed with youth and airbrushing and all that.
Right. It's like they've decided to age gracefully on their own terms.
Exactly. No Botox, no fillers, no crazy diets, just them, comfortable in their own skin.
Which is such a powerful statement, especially given the pressure they face.
Absolutely. It's like they're saying, we're not going to play that game. They're embracing their age, their wrinkles, everything.
And that must resonate with so many people, especially women who are constantly bombarded with these unrealistic beauty standards.
So, yeah.
It's a reminder that true beauty comes from within, from self-acceptance and authenticity.
And honestly, it's incredibly refreshing to see, especially in a world that's so obsessed with image.
For sure.
It actually kind of ties back to their whole approach to fame, you know? They've both achieved incredible success, but they've managed to do it without buying into the whole celebrity circus.
That's true. They've carved out this space for themselves where they can just be without all the noise and distractions.
It's almost like they've built this invisible wall around themselves, keeping the craziness at bay.
I love that image, this invisible wall that protects their sanctuary.
This idea of a sanctuary, I really want to unpack that. Like, what are the elements that make up this space they've created? And how does it contribute to their individual successes and their strength as a couple?
That's a great question. And to really understand that, I think we need to delve a little deeper into their individual journeys. You know, the challenges they've faced, the values they hold dear. Because it's in those personal stories that I think we'll find the blueprint for their sanctuary and ultimately for their extraordinary partnership as well.
So this sanctuary they've built, it's not just like a physical place, right?
It's more of a mindset, I'd say, a way of approaching the world that lets them be themselves without getting swept up in all the Hollywood chaos.
It's like they figured out how to filter out all the noise and focus on what really matters.
Yeah, exactly. It's about setting boundaries and prioritizing their values,
Yeah.
which is tough to do in an industry that's all about, being on all the time.
Yeah, it's like they've somehow managed to step back from all that, you know? They can be Jodie and Alexandra, the real people, not just Jodie Foster, the icon, and Alexandra Hedison, the famous artist.
And that self-awareness is huge, recognizing that difference between the public persona and the private self.
It's like they're protecting that private space, guarding it from the outside world.
And that's what allows their creativity to really thrive, I think.
Okay, so let's talk about that creative energy.
Sure.
Earlier you mentioned how their work kind of echoes similar themes, even though they're using different mediums.
Uh-huh.
You've got Foster, known for these intense, psychologically driven films, right? Like The Silence of the Lambs, really exploring themes of survival and resilience.
Right.
And then you've got Hedison, and her art is more abstract, more focused on like the natural world and all that.
Yeah, on the surface, they do seem pretty different.
So how does that work? Like, how do these seemingly different approaches actually come together?
Well, I think what makes it so interesting is that contrast, right?
Yeah.
They bring these totally different perspectives to the table, but at the same time, they both share this fascination with what it means to be human.
So it's not just about the specific stories they're telling, it's about the underlying themes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like how we deal with challenges, how we find meaning in the face of, all the crap that life throws at us.
So their differences, they actually kind of enhance their creative synergy.
Absolutely. It's like they each have a piece of the puzzle, and when they come together, it creates this whole new picture.
I like that, the puzzle analogy.
And it's not just theory. You can see it in their work.
Yeah.
Take Foster's film, was called The Brave One.
Oh, yeah, with Terrence Howard.
Right. It's this dark, gritty thriller about, a woman who becomes a vigilante after a brutal attack, which isn't exactly something you'd associate with, Hedison's peaceful landscapes and all
Totally different vibes.
But if you look closely, both of them are exploring this idea of transformation, finding strength and beauty in these unexpected places.
So they're both drawn to these like complex, kind of shadowy aspects of the human experience.
Yeah, I think so. And that shared fascination might be part of what fuels their artistic collaborations.
I mean, Foster has said that Hedison's art inspires her filmmaking, right?
Yeah, and you can see those influences, maybe not directly, but in the way she frames a shot, the way she uses light and shadow, that kind of thing.
It's like their individual strengths kind of feed into each other.
Totally.
Right.
And it's not just their creative work either. Think about how they've navigated their careers in Hollywood. They've both achieved incredible success, but they've done it without, selling out or compromising their values.
Yeah, they've stayed true to themselves.
And that's a testament to their strength, their inner compass. They haven't let the pressure of fame dictate their choices.
They're playing by their own rules.
Exactly. And that's led them to a place where they can actually use their platform to, make a difference, champion causes they believe in.
Like Foster's production company, what's it called? Egg Pictures?
Right. She's been bringing more diverse voices to the screen, which is so important.
And Hedison's art often challenges, those traditional ways of thinking, starts conversations about identity and relationships and all that.
It's clear that they both feel this responsibility to, use their influence for good. It's not just about making art. It's about making a positive impact on the world.
And that shared purpose, that desire to actually contribute something meaningful, it probably brings them closer too.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
It's like their partnership is this force multiplier.
Yeah.
It amplifies their individual strengths.
It's not just about romantic love. It's about like mutual respect and shared values.
Totally. A deep understanding of each other's, creative souls.
It's pretty inspiring.
It really is. They've shown that you can be successful without sacrificing your integrity, your authenticity.
It's a good reminder for all of us, really.
For sure. But it also raises a question for me.
Oh, what's that?
How do they manage to maintain that sense of, authenticity and purpose in an industry that's so often driven by ego and competition and just, chasing fame?
That's a good question. I think to answer that, we need to look at the values that drive them, the principles that guide their choices, both individually and as a couple.
Because those values, that's where the real essence of their sanctuary lies. That's the foundation of their partnership.
Okay, so we've been talking about this sanctuary that Foster and Hedison have built, this space that seems to protect them from, the downsides of Hollywood.
Yeah, it's like a shield almost.
But what are the actual values, the, guiding principles that make it so strong?
Well, one that stands out to me is integrity, for sure.
Integrity.
Yeah, like they're both so committed to being true to themselves, making choices that align with their values, even if those choices aren't, the easy ones.
It's like they're not willing to compromise who they are just to be more famous or make more money.
Exactly. It's about the long game, building a career and a life that's sustainable, that reflects who they really are.
Makes sense.
And that commitment to integrity, it shows up in their work, too. Think about some of the films Foster has directed. She's not afraid to tackle tough topics, tell stories that might make people uncomfortable.
Like The Beaver, right?
Yeah, dealing with mental illness in a really raw and honest way.
Not exactly a lighthearted rom-com.
No, not at all. It was a risk, both for her career and, with the critics.
And yet she did it anyway.
Because it was a story she felt needed to be told, and that willingness to take risks, to push the boundaries a bit, it's something she and Hedison both share, I think.
Yeah, Hedison's photography, it often explores those more complex, sometimes even a bit unsettling themes. Like her series, The In-Between.
Oh, yeah, that one's powering
It's
up.
all about those like in-between spaces, those moments of transition and uncertainty.
The stuff that most people try to avoid.
Exactly. It's like she's saying, hey, let's look at this stuff. Let's not be afraid of it.
It takes a lot of courage to do that, both as an artist and just as a person.
So both Foster and Hedison, they're kind of drawn to those darker, more introspective themes.
I think so, yeah. It's not all sunshine and roses with them.
But I think that's what makes their work so relatable, They're not shying away from the hard stuff.
Yeah, they're showing us the full picture, the good and the bad, and in a way, that makes it even more beautiful, Like they're finding those glimmers of hope in the midst of all the darkness.
And maybe that's another one of their shared values, resilience. They've both dealt with some pretty tough situations, right?
For sure. Foster especially. I mean, think about the media frenzy when she came out.
Yeah, that was a whole thing.
Or the stalking incident. I mean, that went on for years.
That's terrifying. I can't even imagine.
And yet she got through it, never let it break her.
She's tough.
And that resilience, it shows up in Hedison's work too, This idea of transformation, of finding beauty in the broken pieces.
It's a powerful message, like they're saying, listen, life's going to knock you down, but you can get back up. You can find a way to make it through.
And that's something we all need to hear sometimes,
Yeah.
Especially these days when it feels like the world's kind of going crazy.
So we've got integrity, resilience, and this belief in being true to yourself. But there's one more value that I think is super important here, and that's love.
Oh, absolutely. Their love for each other, it's kind of the foundation for everything else, wouldn't you say?
I think so. It's in the way they support each other's careers, how they protect their privacy, even the way they're choosing to age together.
Yeah, like a team,
Yeah.
facing the world side by side.
It's a love built on respect, on a shared vision for the future.
In a deep understanding of, each other's strengths and weaknesses, all of it.
It's helped them create this amazing sanctuary, the space where they can thrive, both as individuals and as a couple.
And it's inspiring, right? It shows us that it is possible to have it all, the success, the love, the sense of purpose, without compromising who you are.
It's a reminder that true success isn't about, money or awards. It's about living a life that's authentic and meaningful.
And connected to something bigger than yourself, I think.
That's a great point.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe it's a good time to think about what we can take away from this. What does it mean to live a life of integrity, resilience, love, How can we create our own versions of that sanctuary?
It's something to think about for sure, because in the end, Foster and Hedison's story, it's about so much more than just Hollywood, you know? It's about the power of human connection, the importance of staying true to yourself, and the idea that love can actually change the world.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep striving to live a life that's, both meaningful and fulfilling.